Well, hello once again, everybody. Good morning to those of you joining live. Good afternoon, evening, or whatever time of day it may be for you when you are watching this on replay. Welcome to the Junk Shop Library channel. Our normal shtick is Improv Bible Study, where we read a chapter at a time and word for word the authorized version of 1611. Woof. Good morning, Dave. Because it is the one with which most people are more familiar and the one which is in the public domain. Then we proceed to rip it a new one because it is a garbage book and people take it seriously still after all these years for some damn reason. If that sounds intriguing to you, then by all means stick around, like and subscribe. If that sounds offensive to you, stick around anyway. Give me a hate watch, hit the thumbs down, fight in the comments with my few but faithful. Come on, you know you want it. Let the hate flow through you. Good morning, Molly. Welcome, Mistress Angelica. Dave says, you've moved. Yes, I have. For the moment, anyway. And there's a twofold story behind that. One, the library is even more of a junky junk shop right now than it normally is, and I'm embarrassed for it to be seen on camera and recorded for posterity and future generations. The second thing is, we had the computer down here for something yesterday, and I'm just too much of a lazy bum to go figure out where in the hell the power cords run into and trace it and unplug it and take the whole mess back upstairs. Because sometimes I'm real industrious and sometimes I don't give a damn. Just coffee. All righty. Well, housekeeping out of the way. Oh, one more bit of housekeeping real quick. I gotta welcome my newest library aficionado, Mr. Nacho himself joined us this morning. The one and the only Nacho witness is in the house. Not at the moment, but I'm hoping he'll see this later on and see the shout out. Welcome aboard, my friend. All right, we will be turning today to the, that went so much smoother in my head, 23rd chapter of the book of 1 Samuel. Let's see what horrors and travesties the good book has in store for us today. Chris, if you happen to see this, I think we've got exactly the same printing of the Bible. So we're on page 144, for those of you following along at home. If you hear loud, raucous noises, I don't think my microphone's that good. But if you do, we've got ourselves a nice little thunderstorm going on right now. So it's nothing over which I have control. 23. Then they told David, saying, Behold, the Philistines fight against Keilah, and they rob the threshing floors. Therefore David inquired of the Lord, saying, Shall I go and smite these Philistines? And the Lord said unto David, Go and smite the Philistines, and save Keilah. And David's men said unto him, Behold, we be afraid here in Judah. How much more if we come to Keilah against the armies of the Philistines? Then David inquired of the Lord yet again, And the Lord answered him and said, Arise, go down to Keilah, for I will deliver the Philistines into thine hand. So David and his men went to Keilah, and fought with the Philistines, and brought away their cattle, and smote them with a great slaughter. So David saved the inhabitants of Keilah. And it came to pass, when Abiathar the son of Ahimelech fled to David to Keilah, that he came down with an ephod in his hand. Drink! It's just coffee. And it was told Saul that David was come to Keilah. And Saul said, God hath delivered him into mine hand, for he is shut in by entering into a town that hath gates and bars. And Saul called all the people together to war, to go down to Keilah, to besiege David and his men. And David knew that Saul secretly practiced mischief against him. And he said to Abiathar the priest, Bring hither the ephod. Then said David, O Lord God of Israel, thy servant hath certainly heard that Saul seeketh to come to Keilah, to destroy the city for my sake. Will the men of Keilah deliver me up into his hand? Will Saul come down, as thy servant hath heard? O Lord God of Israel, I beseech thee, tell thy servant. And the Lord said, He will come down. Then said David, Will the men of Keilah deliver me and my men into the hand of Saul? And the Lord said, They will deliver thee up. Then David and his men, which were about 600, arose and departed out of Keilah, and went whithersoever they could go. And it was told Saul that David had escaped from Keilah, and he forbare to go forth. And David abode in the wilderness in strongholds, and remained in a mountain in the wilderness of Ziph. And Saul sought him every day, but God delivered him not into his hand. And David saw that Saul was come to seek his life, and David was in the wilderness of Ziph, in a wood. And Jonathan, Saul's son, arose, and went to David into the wood, and strengthened his hand in God. And he said unto him, Fear not, for the hand of Saul my father shall not find thee, and thou shalt be a king over Israel, and I shall be next unto thee, and that also Saul my father knoweth. And they two made a covenant before the Lord. And David abode in the wood, and Jonathan went to his house. Then came up the Ziphites to Saul to Gibeah, saying, Doth not David hide himself with us in strongholds in the wood, in the hill of Hachilah, which is on the south of Jeshimon? Now therefore, O king, come down according to all the desire of thy soul to come down, and our part shall be to deliver him into the king's hand. And Saul said, Blessed be ye of the Lord, for ye have compassion on me. Go, I pray you, prepare yet, and know and see his place where his haunt is, and who hath seen him there, for it is told me that he dealeth very subtly. See, therefore, and take knowledge of all the lurking places where he hideth himself, and come ye again to me with the certainty, and I will go with you. And it shall come to pass, if he be in the land, that I will search him out throughout all the thousands of Judah. And they arose and went to Ziph before Saul. But David and his men were in the wilderness of Maon, in the plain on the south of Jeshimon. Saul also and his men went to seek him. And they told David, whereupon he came down into a rock, and abode in the wilderness of Maon. And when Saul heard that, he pursued after David in the wilderness of Maon. And Saul went on this side of the mountain, and David and his men on that side of the mountain. And David made haste to get away for fear of Saul, for Saul and his men compassed David and his men round about to take them. But there came a messenger unto Saul, saying, Haste thee, and come, for the Philistines have invaded the land. Wherefore Saul returned from pursuing after David, and went against the Philistines. Therefore they call that place Selah Hamalekoth. And David went up from thence, and dwelt in strongholds at En-gedi. So there we have chapter 23 of 1 Samuel. We've got smiting today. Yes, right out the gate. Everybody loves a good smiting. Molly says, if this was junk... That's funny. I was just thinking that when I took that second shot. If this was Junk Shop After Dark, we'd all die of alcohol poisoning. Well, it's a tradition, you know. You have to take a drink every time the good book says ephod. It's a good thing I didn't think of that back during Deuteronomy, isn't it? I'd have alcohol poisoning or caffeine toxicity. All right, so this chapter is the not very interesting story of the pursuit of David by Saul. Saul still got his knickers in a twist about David and is determined to kill him, but can't find him. He looks high and he looks low. He seeks him here, he seeks him there. Old Saul, he seeks him everywhere. But to no avail. Not so much because the Lord is on David's side as because David keeps running away and hiding in caves and woods and on the other sides of mountains and such. There was one reference to David being on his, to David I can't talk. To the Lord being on David's side and not Saul's. There is also the fact that, hello, Thor. There is also the fact that Saul's son, Jonathan, who it would not be unreasonable to suppose from the text is David's lover, guarantees him that Saul, his father, shall not find him. So I strongly suspect, based on what we just read, that Jonathan's actually misdirecting his father's soldiers hither when David is yon, and yon when David is hither. This side of the mountain versus that side of the mountain, as it said. Meanwhile, I don't know why I keep footsing with these. I'm sorry, y'all. I am a fidgeter. Meanwhile, whilst Saul is pursuing David all over the wildernesses of Ziph and of Maon, the Philistines take notice that Saul and his army have left the rest of the countryside all undefended. So in come the Philistines to come a-conquering. So the people in danger of Philistine invasion send word to Saul and say, get your kingly ass back up here and defend us. Stop pursuing your damn vendetta all over the wilderness of Ziph. Help us! The Philistines have come. And Saul says, oh yeah, defend the kingdom. That's what a king's supposed to do. I had lost track of it in the midst of my pursuing of a vendetta, and goes back to the kingly place, the capital. And that's all that happens in the 23rd chapter. That's it. Not even much to rephrase and recount, let alone to sink one's rhetorical teeth into. So you know what that means? Old Junk Shop is going to keep on going, and we're going to do chapter 24. I know you're just pained and disappointed and shit. Oh, yes. We do cuss here in the library. This is not a family-friendly channel for those of you who didn't pick that up from the fact that we're reading the whole damn Bible. Begats and massacres and all. Oh, y'all pardon me. It's allergy season and my nose itcheth. All right. Chapter 24. Wherein hopefully something happens other than ring-a-ring-a-rosy. And it came to pass, when Saul was returned from following the Philistines, that it was told to him, saying, Behold, David is in the wilderness of En-gedi. Then Saul took 3,000 chosen men out of all Israel, and went to seek David and his men upon the rocks of the wild goats. And he came to the sheepcotes by the way, where there was a cave. Y'all remember this story? I remember this story. Came to the sheepcotes by the way, where was a cave, and Saul went in to cover his feet. And David and his men remained in the sides of the cave. And the men of David said unto him, Behold, the day of which the Lord said unto thee, Behold, I will deliver thine enemy into thine hand, that thou mayest do unto him as it shall seem good unto thee. Then David arose and cut off the skirt of Saul's robe privily. And it came to pass afterward that David's heart smote him because he had cut off Saul's skirt. And he said unto his men, The Lord forbid that I should do this thing unto my master, the Lord's anointed, to stretch forth mine hand against him, seeing he is the anointed of the Lord. So David stayed his servants with these words, and suffered them not to rise against Saul. But Saul rose up out of the cave and went on his way. Saul arose afterward, and went out of the cave, and cried after Saul, saying, My lord the king! And when Saul looked behind him, David stooped with his face to the earth, and bowed himself. And David said to Saul, Wherefore hearest thou men's words, saying, Behold, David seeketh thy hurt? Behold, this day thine eyes have seen how that the Lord hath delivered me today into mine hand in the cave, and some bade me kill thee. But mine eye spared thee, and I said, I will not put forth mine hand against my Lord, for he is the Lord's anointed. Moreover, my father, see, yea, see the skirt of thy robe in mine hand, for in that I cut off the skirt of thy robe, and killed thee not. Know thou, and see that there is neither evil nor transgression in my hand, and I have not sinned against thee, yet thou huntest my soul to take it. The Lord judge between me and thee, and the Lord avenge me of thee, but mine hand shall not be upon thee. As saith in the proverb of the ancients, Wickedness proceedeth from the wicked, but mine hand shall not be upon thee. After whom is the king of Israel come out? After whom dost thou pursue? After a dead dog, after a flea. The Lord therefore be judge, and judge between me and thee, and see, and plead my cause, and deliver me out of thine hand. And it came to pass, when David had made an end of speaking these words unto Saul, that Saul said, Is this thy voice, my son David? And Saul lifted up his voice and wept. And he said to David, Thou art more righteous than I, for thou hast rewarded me good, whereas I have rewarded thee evil. And thou hast shewed this day how that thou hast dealt well with me, for as much as when the Lord had delivered me into thine hand, thou killedst me not. For if a man find his enemy, will he let him go well away? Wherefore the Lord reward thee good, for that thou hast done unto me this day. And now, behold, I know well that thou shalt surely be king, and that the kingdom of Israel shall be established in thine hand. Swear to me now, therefore, unto me by the Lord, that thou wilt not cut off my seed after me, and that thou wilt not destroy my name out of my father's house. And David sware unto Saul. And Saul went home, but David and his men gat them up into the hold. And there we have 24th chapter of 1 Samuel. Alrighty. A little bit of potty humor there in the good book. Y'all excuse me one second, make sure I've got the right banner here. I got a shill. You know I got to shill myself. All right. So, while David is being pursued by Saul hither and yon, uphill and down dale, over the river and through the woods, Saul has to turn aside into a cave to cover his feet. You remember what we said about feet back there in the book of Ruth. If you don't, you need to go back and listen to my stories regarding the book of Ruth. Just shill myself all over the place here. All right, so Saul turns aside to cover his feet, and whilst he is covering his feet in the cave, I don't know why I'm shilling myself. I got Dave in the chat. Thank you, my friend. And the thing is, he has turned aside to cover his feet into the same cave where David and his men are hiding. So Saul comes into the cave and proceeds about his kingly business. David and his men stick to the side of the cave. And some of David's men come all creepsy and tricksy up to David and say, "Now's your chance, buddy. He's distracted. He's otherwise engaged. Why don't you sneak up behind him and stab him in the back while he's covering his feet?" David says, "You know what? That sounds like a good idea. I've had enough of being pursued uphill and down dale, round about the mulberry bush and over the river and through the woods." So he sneaks up behind Saul, thinks better of it at the last minute. Instead of cutting Saul's throat from behind, he cuts off a piece of his robe and sneaks back to his men and says, "I decided against it. He's the anointed king of Israel after all." So Saul finishes up his kingly business and leaves the cave. David leaves the cave after him, bows down with his face to the ground and goes, "Hey, Saul!" Saul turns around and goes, "What? Where'd that come from?" David waves a little piece of fabric and says, "Does this look familiar?" Saul presumably blinks at it for a couple of seconds and then starts checking around, and lo and behold, there's a piece of his robe missing from behind, which was there before he went into the cave to take care of his kingly business. He says, "What the fuck was that?" And David says, "Well, here's the thing. Some of my men, we were hiding back in the cave, and some of my men told me to come all creepsy and tricksy up behind you and kill your ass whilst you were taking care of your kingly business. And I decided against it the last minute and just cut off a piece of the backside of your robe instead. Because after all, you are anointed by God, the King of Israel, and I didn't aim to raise my hand in violence against you." Saul says, "I know that voice." "David?" David says, "Yep, you got it in one." Saul says, "Well, God damn it, I can't kill you now, can I? You had every opportunity to, and all you did was fuck up my robe. Damn it. Okay, I tell you what, I'll agree not to kill you in return for you not killing me. There's just one thing. Please don't kill my son, because I want my bloodline to continue." And David says, "Don't kill Jonathan, my good buddy Jonathan, whom I love as much as I love my own soul." "Okay, I won't kill him." Saul says, "Hooray!" And he goes back to the house, and David sets up camp out in the field, very glad, presumably, that he doesn't have to go back and hide in the cave where Tom, Dick, and Harry are carrying out their kingly business, or the peasant version thereof. Yep. I'm going to have to go in afterwards and rename this stream Kingly Business, aren't I? Taking care of business. That's what I'll do. I'll rename it Taking Care of Business, and then I'll watch my metrics go through the roof for the first 3 seconds of the video. People will be clicking on it wondering what the hell is going on and bailing. I'm sure some of y'all know this story, but back in the a quick digression all about me. Back in Numbers or Deuteronomy or some such thing, when God's going on and on about how fancy he wants his special tent, I kept joking and calling it the Pimp My Tent section of the Bible, and I actually named one of the videos It's Pimpin' Pimpin' after a Cat Williams special. Well, about a month ago, Cat Williams starts trending when he released another special, and all of a sudden the views on my It's Pimpin' Pimpin' video went through the goddamn roof. People were clicking on it all over the place and only watching about the first 6 to 12 seconds of it. Once I finally figured out what the hell was going on, it was very, very funny. Go back and rename this and Taking Care of Business and watch the same thing happen once Elvis Week rolls around. That's what you came here for, isn't it? Weird little uninteresting anecdotes about YouTube statistics. Molly says, "Did you think I meant country matters?" Miss Molly's got a little bit of a literature background, for those of you who don't know. Show up when I click on you, damn it. There we go. All right. Oh, wow, we've only been going 27 minutes. We might get another couple of chapters done here, depending on how long they are. Sounds like a plan to me. If it doesn't sound like a plan to you, you can always leave. Please don't leave. All right, enough foolishness. Time for 25. And Samuel died. That was abrupt. Okay. And Samuel died, and all the Israelites were gathered together and lamented him, and buried him in his house at Ramah. And David arose and went down to the wilderness of Paran. And there was a man in Maon, whose possessions were in Carmel. And the man was very great, and he had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats, and he was shearing his sheep in Carmel. Now the name of the man was Nabal, and the name of his wife Abigail. And she was a woman of good understanding, and of a beautiful countenance. But the man was churlish and evil in his doings, and he was of the house of Caleb. And David heard in the wilderness that Nabal did shear his sheep. And David sent out 10 young men. And David said unto the young men, Get you up to Carmel, and go to Nabal, and greet him in my name. And thus shall ye say to him that liveth in prosperity, Peace be both to thee, and peace be to thine house, and peace be unto all that thou hast. And now I have heard that thou hast shearers. Now thy shepherds were with us, and we hurt them not, neither was there aught missing unto them, all the while they were in Carmel. Ask thy young men, and they will shew thee. Wherefore let the young men find favor in thine eyes, for we come in a good day. Give, I pray thee, whatsoever cometh to thine hand unto thy servants, and to thy son David. And when David's young men came, they spake to Nabal according to all those words in the name of David, and ceased. And Nabal answered David's servants, and said, Who is David? And who is the son of Jesse? There be many servants nowadays that break away every man from his master. Shall I then take my bread and my water and my flesh that I have killed for my shearers, and give it unto men whom I know not whence they be? So David's young men turned their way, and went again, and came and told him all these sayings. And David said unto his men, Gird ye on every man his sword. And they girded on every man his sword. And David also girded on his sword. And there went up after David about 400 men, and 200 abode by the stuff. But one of the young men told Abigail, Nabal's wife, saying, Behold, David sent messengers out of the wilderness to salute our master, and he railed on them. But the men were very good unto us, and we were not hurt, neither missed we anything, as long as we were conversant with them while we were in the fields. They were a wall unto us, both day and night, all the while we were with them, keeping the sheep. Now therefore know and consider what thou wilt do, for evil is determined against our master, and against all his household, for he is such a son of Belial, that a man cannot speak to him. Then Abigail made haste, and took 200 loaves, and 2 bottles of wine, and 5 sheep ready dressed, and 5 measures of parched corn, and 100 clusters of raisins, and 200 cakes of figs, and laid them on asses. And she said unto her servants, Go on before me. Behold, I come after you. But she told not her husband Nabal. And it was so, as she rode on the ass, that she came down by the covert in the hill. And behold, David and his men came down against her, and she met them. Now David had said, Surely in vain have I kept all that this fellow hath in the wilderness, so that nothing was missed of all that pertained unto him, and he hath requited me evil for good. So and more also do God unto the enemies of David, if I leave of all that pertain to him by the morning light any that pisseth against the wall. And when Abigail saw David, she hasted, and lighted off the ass, and fell before David on her face, and bowed herself to the ground, and fell at his feet, and said, Upon me, my lord, upon me let this iniquity be. And let thine handmaid, I pray thee, speak in thine audience, and hear the words of thine handmaid. Let not, my lord, I pray thee, regard this man of Belial, even Nabal, for as his name is, so is he. Nabal is his name, and folly is with him. But I, thine handmaid, saw not the young men of my lord, whom thou didst send. Now therefore, my lord, as the Lord liveth, and as thy soul liveth, seeing the Lord hath withholden thee from coming to shed blood, and from avenging thyself with thine own hand, now let thine enemies, and they that seek evil to my lord, be as Nabal. And now this blessing which thine handmaid hath brought unto my lord, let it even be given unto the young men that follow my lord. I pray thee, forgive the trespass of thine handmaid, for the Lord will certainly make my lord a sure house, because my lord fighteth the battles of the Lord, and evil hath not been found in thee all thy days. Yet a man is risen to pursue thee, and seek thy soul, but the soul of my lord shall be bound in the bundle of life with the Lord thy God. And the souls of thine enemies, them shall he sling out as out of the middle of a sling. And it shall come to pass, when the Lord shall have done to my lord according to all the good that he hath spoken concerning thee, and shall have appointed thee ruler over Israel, that this shall be no grief unto thee, nor offense of heart unto my lord, either that thou hast shed blood causeless, or that my lord hath avenged himself. But when the Lord shall have dealt well with my lord, then remember thine handmaid. And David said unto Abigail, Blessed be the Lord God of Israel, which sent thee this day to meet me. And blessed be thy advice, and blessed be thou, which hast kept me this day from coming to shed blood, and from avenging myself with mine own hand. For in very deed, as the Lord God of Israel liveth, which hath kept me back from hurting thee, except thou hast hastened to me, and come to meet me, surely there had not been left unto Nabal by the morning light any that pisseth against the wall. So David received of her hand that which she had brought him, and said unto her, Go up in peace to thine house. See, I have hearkened to thy voice, and have accepted thy person. And Abigail came to Nabal, and behold, he held a feast in his house, like the feast of a king. And Nabal's heart was merry within him, for he was very drunken. Wherefore she told him nothing, less or more, until the morning light. But it came to pass in the morning, when the wine was gone out of Nabal, and his wife had told him these things, that his heart died within him, and he became as a stone. And it came to pass about 10 days after, that the Lord smote Nabal, that he died. And when David heard that Nabal was dead, he said, Blessed be the Lord that hath pleaded the cause of my reproach from the hand of Nabal, and hath kept his servant from evil. For the Lord hath returned the wickedness of Nabal upon his own head. And David sent and communed with Abigail to take her to him to wife. And when the servants of David were come to Abigail to Carmel, they spake unto her, saying, David sent us unto thee to take thee to him to wife. And she arose, and bowed herself on her face to the earth, and said, Behold, let thine handmaid be a servant to wash the feet of the servants of my lord. And Abigail hasted, and arose, and rode upon an ass, with 5 damsels of hers that went after her. And she went after the messengers of David, and became his wife. David also took Ahinoam of Jezreel, and they were also both of them his wives. But Saul had given Michal his daughter, David's wife, to Phalti, the son of Laish, which was of Galim. All right, there we go. Chapter 25 of 1 Samuel. So close to a massacre, and yet so far away. Alrighty. So while David's in hiding out in the wilderness, he runs a little protection racket taking care of the servants of this man, Dumbass. That's a loose translation of Nabal. Dumbass. And Dumbass's servants are grazing their sheep in the wilderness and operate under the protection of David and his men. Molly says, wait, did Saul give David's first wife, Michal, to someone else? Yes. Yes, he did. He's decided not to go to war with him or try to kill him anymore, but it doesn't stop him from being a jackass, and gave his wife, whom David, remember, left behind whilst he climbed out the window and she made a pillow dummy to put in his bed. Left her behind, and so Saul decided, well, I've got this perfectly good woman burning a hole in my pocket. I'll give her to Phalti, the son of Laish of Galim. So Saul's not going to try to kill David anymore, but he doesn't have to be nice to him. Let that be a lesson to you. Take your wives with you when you climb out the window and run away. Otherwise, your murderous father-in-law might give her away to somebody else that we've never heard of before, and I strongly suspect ain't going to hear of again. Was that allowed, or was it full-on kidnapping? I'll be honest, I'm not familiar with the rules regarding wives left behind. I strongly suspect that because wives are just straight up property in this culture, that if you leave your wife behind when you run away, I think it's probably a finders keepers kind of situation. That because the woman was property of her father, which was then given to the now husband, that if the now husband runs away and leaves the wife behind, I strongly suspect that the property rights over the wife revert to the original owner, to daddy. But remember, it's a book of love for all God's children. Yeah. All right. Yep, let's not completely destroy the binding. This poor little thing is probably going to fall apart before we get to Nehemiah anyway. Alrighty, so David keeps the bandits off of the neck of Dumbass's servants during sheep feeding time. And then sheep shearing time comes around. And David says, you know, I've got some experience in the sheep herding business. That was my deal before I found myself swept up in the giant killing and king running away from foolishness. And look, lo and behold, it's sheep shearing time. So I tell you what, he gathers up some of his young men and sends them up to the house of old Dumbass and says, hey, we work for the guy that kept the marauders and bandits from spoiling your sheep back during grazing season, and we're calling in a favor in return. We need some food for him and his army. And Dumbass says, I've never heard of this David, son of Jesse. Is he a runaway slave? The country's full of them these days. David's young men look at each other and look at Dumbass and look at each other and go back to Mr. David. They say, hey, Mr. David, old Dumbass the Rich wants to know if you're a runaway slave because he can't imagine why anybody would have the temerity, the outright temerity, to come ask him for goodies. David says, issue short arms to the men. And he swears before God, there will not remain one of Nabal's possessions standing that pisseth against the wall. We're going to go and kill not just Nabal, but all of his men as well, down to the shepherds. And he strikes out on his mission of vengeance. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, one of Nabal's servants goes over to Abigail, Nabal's wife, and says, there was this thing that just happened that we thought you might want to know about. You remember how surprised everybody was that we didn't suffer a single loss during the sheep shearing time? You know, every single one of the sheep and the shepherds came back, and we didn't have any difficulty whatsoever with bandits or marauders or Philistines or various other sons of Belial. Well, the reason for that was there's this warlord out there named David, son of Jesse. And he protected all of the sheep and the shepherds during sheep shearing or sheep grazing time. Probably because he used to be a shepherd himself back in the day, and he knows it's hard out here for a pimp. So they done run out of food, David and his men, and they sent us, or they sent some men up to your husband's place to ask for some victuals, and Mr. Nabal said no in a very insulting way. And we're rightly feared that this warlord is going to take that personal. And Abigail says, oh my God, he's done a stupid. He's done a stupid again. So she scrapes together whatever she can in terms of victuals and sends it on ahead and says, take all this edible shit down to David and see if you can placate him until I can get there. Sends it on ahead and rides down. Well, David sees this little caravan coming towards him as he's on his way to come up and kill all of Nabal's folks what pisseth against the wall, and says, the hell is this mess? And Abigail comes over and says, here's the deal. My husband is a dumbass, not only in name, but in nature. I understand he was right fucking insulting to you, and I don't blame you too much for deciding to strike out and get some vengeance, but could you please, just this once, take after the loving side of the Lord your God and not the vengeful, genocidal side? I mean, I know he's a dumbass, but he's my husband, and I don't really want to be a widow. It would suck to end up a widow. Have all my shit taken away. David says, you know what? It is conceivable that I have overreacted just a little bit. Yes, he called me a name, and yes, I've got excellent precedent from the Lord my God to take a small personal insult and turn it into a fucking genocide. Remember, y'all, it's a religion of love. But in this instance, I think you may be right. I may have done overreacted just a tiny bit. So I'm going to hold off on the genocide, familicide, householdicide, whatever. I'm going to hold off on the mass murder of all that pisseth against the wall in Nabal's household. And thanks for the victuals. We're going to have a picnic instead. So Abigail says, oh, thank fucking God. She goes back to the house. And when she gets there, she finds her husband pissed off his tits. So she doesn't tell him about the little errand she just ran to save his life. Until the next morning. And the next morning, she tells him, and he has a stroke and dies a week and a half later. At which point, David says, well, would you look at that? I didn't even have to bloody my hands, and we're not going to have to resharpen our swords. He done got smitten by God, and he dead. And I didn't even have to work up a sweat. And now I can take to wife that cute little thing that came out and gave me victuals, so that I know automatically she already knows how to cook and run a household because she done given me evidence of it. So he goes up to Nabal's house and says, hey, Mrs. Dumbass, guess what? You're my wife now. And while he's at it, he also takes another wife in addition. Because remember, he done left his beloved wife back in the house of Saul while he was fleeing for his life without no regard for nothing or nobody, except for being sad that he had to leave his boyfriend. Gotta love you the Old Testament, don't you? There's some wackily comedic goings-on going on here. Seriously, like this story, the last couple of chapters of 1 Samuel, if you were to stage it right and make sure to play yakety sax in the background periodically, you could make a fucking uproarious comedy out of this. And it would be awesome. You got Michal making a cloth dummy in her husband's bed whilst he climbs out the window because his father-in-law wants to stab him with a spear and keeps trying and keeps missing. And he runs off and hides in the wilderness and gets surrounded by 3,000 men who come out of nowhere just because of the reputation he has from having killed a full-ass giant. And then they hide in a cave, and David decides not to kill his father-in-law while his father-in-law is taking a shit. And his father-in-law goes back to his house and gives away his wife. Meanwhile, there's this whole misunderstanding about how you treat your neighbors and some sheep running around all over the place, and Abigail coming and going and begging for people's lives and having to not tell them that she done begged for her that she done begged for his life because he was so fallen out drunk he couldn't know top from bottom. Then he has a massive stroke and dies 10 days later, and then the guy whose forgiveness she just begged on behalf of the guy who just died shows up out of nowhere and says, "Hey, guess what? You're my property now. Sorry if you were anticipating living a happy widowhood as head of this massive fucking household. You're going to come live with me in the godforsaken burning ass desert, TM." I mean, in fairness, it's only hilarious if you're a man. If you're a woman, it sucks, just like every single other page of this fucking book. Because, you know, it was written for us, by us, and nobody too much cares about the perspective or feelings of not even just second-class citizens, but actual walking, talking property, like, you know, slaves and servants and women and so forth. Oh, hey, Maya. Welcome. Welcome, welcome. Molly says, anyone have a brick wall I can bang my head against until I'm too stupid to care how this book treats women? She's right. Hi, Julie's husband. Howdy. Hope life's treating you well. All right, well, we're at the 51-minute mark. Oh, thanks, Dave. You're awesome. Let's see. 26 is of average length. I'm not going to make it all the way through to the end of the book. There's 31 chapters. So the next stream will finish out 1 Samuel. What do you think? Do you want to gamble on my poor little camera, my poor little long-suffering camera, and see if we can get through chapter 26? What do you think, y'all? I'm kind of ready to go for another chapter, but, you know, there's always the spectacular 1-hour crash point to be aware of. Anybody watching this in replay and new to the channel, it's a law of the universe. My poor little $20 Best Buy camera fucks off to the hills at almost exactly the 1-hour mark. We're about to see if that continues to happen. Molly says yes. No one says no, and Molly says yes. So we are going to roll on into chapter 26. See if Mr. David actually cares that his wife done got given away. 26. For which I do not have a banner. Let me mock one up real quick. Be helpful for anybody scanning through, listening in after the fact, just wanting to get the Bible parts read out and not my vulgar commentary. I know there's a couple of y'all out there. My channel's small enough I can see the analytics. I know what's going on. Show checkbox. Yes. All right. 26. And the Ziphites came unto Saul to Gibeah, saying, Doth not David hide himself in the hill of Hachilah, which is before Jeshimon? Then Saul arose and went... Seriously? And Saul arose and went down to the wilderness of Ziph, having 3,000 chosen men of Israel with him, to seek David in the wilderness of Ziph. And Saul pitched in the tent of the hill of Hachilah, which is before Jeshimon, by the way. But David abode in the wilderness, and he saw that Saul came after him into the wilderness. David therefore sent out spies, and understood that Saul was come in very deed. And David arose and came to the place where Saul had pitched, and David beheld the place where Saul lay, and Abner the son of Ner, the captain of his host, and Saul lay in the trench, and the people pitched round about him. Then answered David and said to Ahimelech the Hittite, and to Abishai the son of Zeruiah, brother to Joab, saying, Who will go down with me to Saul in the camp? And Abishai said, I will go down with thee. So David and Abishai came to the people by night, and behold, Saul lay sleeping within the trench, and his spear stuck in the ground at his bolster. But Abner and the people lay round about him. Then said Abishai to David, God hath delivered thine enemy into thine hand this day. Now therefore let me smite him, I pray thee, with the spear, even to the earth at once. I will not smite him the second time. And David said to Abishai, Destroy him not, for who can stretch forth his hand against the Lord's anointed, and be guiltless? David said furthermore, As the Lord liveth, the Lord shall smite him, or his day shall come to die, or he shall descend into battle and perish. The Lord forbid that I should stretch forth mine hand against the Lord's anointed. But I pray thee, take thee now the spear that is at his bolster, and the cruse of water, and let us go. So David took the spear and the cruse of water from Saul's bolster, and they gat them away. And no man saw it, nor knew it, nor awakened, for they were all asleep, because a deep sleep from the Lord was fallen upon them. Then David went over to the other side, and stood on the top of a hill afar off, a great space being between them. And David cried to the people, and to Abner the son of Ner, saying, Answerest thou not, Abner? Then Abner answered and said, Who art thou that criest to the king? And David said to Abner, Art thou not a valiant man? And who is like to thee in Israel? Wherefore then hast thou not kept thy lord the king? For there came one of the people in to destroy the king thy lord. This thing is not good that thou hast done. As the Lord liveth, ye are worthy to die, because ye have not kept your master, the Lord's anointed. And now see where the king's spear is, and the cruse of water that was at his bolster. And Saul knew David's voice, and said, Is this thy voice, my son David? And David said, It is my voice, my lord, O king. And he said, Wherefore doth my lord thus pursue after his servant? For what have I done, or what evil is in mine hand? Now therefore I pray thee, let the lord the king hear the words of his servant. If the Lord have stirred thee up against me, let him accept an offering. But if they be the children of men, cursed be they before the Lord, for they have driven me out this day from abiding in the inheritance of the Lord, saying, Go serve other gods. Now therefore let not my blood fall to the earth before the face of the Lord, for the king of Israel is come out to seek a flea, as when one doth hunt a partridge in the mountains. And said Saul, I have sinned. Return, my son David, for I will no more do thee harm, because my soul is precious in thine eyes this day. Behold, I have played the fool, and have erred exceedingly. And David answered and said, Behold the king's spear, and let one of the young men come over and fetch it. The Lord render to every man his righteousness and his faithfulness. For the Lord delivered thee into my hand today, but I would not stretch forth mine hand against the Lord's anointed. And behold, as thy life was much set by this day in mine eyes, so let my life be much set by in the eyes of the Lord, and let him deliver me out of all tribulation. Then Saul said to David, Blessed be thou, my son David. Thou shalt do great things, and also shalt thou prevail. So David went on his way, and Saul returned to his place. 26th chapter of 1 Samuel. In which we discover that Saul can't make up his damn mind. So, having given away David's wife, Saul gets a bee in his bonnet to kill David again, because he can't make up his damn mind. So he gets word that David is camped in the wilderness of thus and such this time, and he strikes out for the wilderness of thus and such. And David gets word that Saul is on his way, so he sends out spies to make sure. And sure enough, here comes Saul. Not just Saul, but Saul plus 3,000 men. Little bit of overkill to hunt one lone guy out in the wilderness. And David says, well, he's after me again. God damn it. So Saul takes, or David takes one of his trusty lieutenants, and they come creepsy and tricksy into Saul's camp late one night while Saul is asleep. And everybody's snoring soundly. And the night watch is not doing their job. So they sneak into the camp, and they find Saul lying there with his spear in the ground next to his pillow and a little cup of water in case he gets thirsty in the night. And David's lieutenant says, he's right there. We could end this foolishness once and for all. This idiot has been chasing you uphill, down dale, round about the mulberry bush, and over the river and through the woods for how long has it been now? He's lying there on the ground. Let me just take that damn spear and run it all the way through him and into the ground. Let me just nail this motherfucker to the ground right now, and we can get on with our lives, damn it. You've just gotten yourself 2 new wives, for heaven's sake. Don't you have better things to be doing than running about all over the wilderness trying to get away from your crazy ex-father-in-law who's determined to kill you for some damn reason nobody knows why? And David says, pshaw. God likes him, so I won't do anything to him. You couldn't convince me to kill him while he was taking a dump last chapter. What makes you think I'm going to kill him in his sleep in this chapter? But I tell you what we'll do. We're going to steal his spear, and we're going to steal his drinking cup. And then they go up to a hill, safely out of spear chucking range, and start yelling at Saul's lieutenant. Say, wake up! Wake up! You're falling down on the job. You're supposed to be protecting the king. And Saul says, what the hell is all this fucking racket in the middle of the night? I know that voice. God damn it. David, is that you? I came looking for you, but I wasn't anticipating being woken up by you in the middle of the fucking night. David says, yeah, it's me. How do I put this diplomatically? Nanny boo boo. Quick, pick up your spear and throw it at me. Quick, take a drink of water. Guess what? Your lieutenant done fell down on the job, and here they are. And Saul says, oh, for heaven's sake, this is getting fucking ridiculous. You've demonstrated you're not going to kill me because the Lord likes me so much that he put you over against me, Mr. Tens of Thousands. Likes me so much that he's given me an evil spirit that fucks with my moods and convinces me to throw spears at people all willy-nilly and miss every damn time. But fine. I know I said this in the last chapter, but I'm going to say it again. Let's sign a mutual non-aggression pact and we'll go our separate ways. David says, here, you can have your spear back. I'm keeping your little drinking cup, though. And they go their separate ways. Again! And that's the end of this chapter. I see movement in the chat. Dave says LOL about something. This has been a funny handful of chapters, hasn't it? And Angie, good morning. And good morning to you, Miss Angie. I saw you picked up a new Patreon patron yesterday, day before, something like that. Fantastic. Alrighty. How am I looking? How am I sounding? Is my camera doing anything stupid? Every time I get about ready to wrap this up preemptively in fear of my camera doing stupid shit, somebody else joins in the chat, and I feel obligated to continue to go. Anybody want to find out what stupid shit rolls out in chapter 27? Dave says, not yet. Angie says I'm adorable. Thank you. I loved the family drama video the other day, Angie. That was fantastic. Granny's right, y'all. Floss your teeth. All right. I'm going to edit this banner. We're going to keep going. Hide. Edit. 27 for the benefit of anybody scrolling through after the fact, just looking for the Bible part. And show. Scroll. Yes. Checkbox. Someday I'm going to tell you all the story behind checkbox. But not today. You'll just have to keep tuning in, and someday I'll tell you. 27. And David said in his heart, I shall now perish one day by the hand of Saul. There is nothing better for me than that I should speedily escape into the land of the Philistines, and Saul shall despair of me to seek me any more in any coast of Israel. So shall I escape out of his hand. And David arose, and he passed over with the 600 men that were with him unto Achish, the son of Maach, the king of Gath. And David dwelt with Achish in Gath, he and his men, every man with his household, even David with his 2 wives, Ahinoam the Jezreelitess, and Abigail the Carmelitess, Nabal's wife. And it was told Saul that David was fled to Gath, and he sought no more again for him. And David said unto Achish, If I have now found grace in thine eyes, let them give me a place in some town in the country, that I may dwell there. For why should thy servant dwell in the royal city with thee? Then Achish gave him Ziklag that day, wherefore Ziklag pertaineth unto the kings of Judah unto this day. And the time that David dwelt in the country of the Philistines was a full year and 4 months. And David and his men went up and invaded the Geshurites, and the Gezrites, and the Amalekites, for those nations were of old the inhabitants of the land, as thou goest to Shur, even unto the land of Egypt. And David smote the land, and left neither man nor woman alive, and took away the sheep, and the oxen, and the asses, and the camels, and the apparel, and returned, and came to Achish. And Achish said, Whither have ye made a road today? And David said, Against the south of Judah, and against the south of the Jerahmeelites, and against the south of the Kenites. And David saved neither man nor woman alive to bring tidings to Gath, saying, Lest they should tell on us, saying, So did David, and so will be his manner all the while he dwelleth in the country of the Philistines. And Achish believed David, saying, He hath made his people Israel utterly to abhor him. Therefore he shall be my servant forever. And there we have chapter 27 of the book of 1 Samuel. Dave dropping the links again. Thank you, my friend. Angie says, Ziklag sounds like a computer virus. It does indeed. I don't know why I'm singing. That was weird. I'm gonna stop. Old Junk Shop may have had just about enough coffee this morning. All right. So, short little chapter 27. David says to himself in his heart, this is getting out of hand. Every time I think I've made peace with my ex-father-in-law, he comes charging after me again with his 3,000 men. He has found me in sheep-herding country, and he has found me in wilderness, and he has taken a dump in my cave everywhere I go. My ex-father-in-law comes charging after me. This is going to go on until one of us dies, isn't it? So he says, you know what? I'm done with this shit. I'm running away. I'm going to go hide out amongst the Philistines. He's not going to follow me there, surely. So he goes and holds parley with King Achish and sets up camp in the royal city there. And Saul hears that his nemesis David has taken to hiding out amongst the Philistines and says, well, good riddance to bad rubbish. So much for that. I'll just get on with my life then, I suppose. Cut to David in the royal city of Achish, and he seeks an audience with Achish, and he says, I can't imagine you're real comfortable with my warlording ass hanging out in your royal city, so just tell me where I should hang out in some other town, and I'll be happy to go set up camp there with all of my warriors and my wives and shit. And Achish says, yeah, go over to What's-It Town over yonder. Just check back in with me periodically, because I want to know what crazy-ass Judean warlords are doing when I give them permission to live in my area. David says, okay, cool. So David goes off and he sets up camp over in What's-It-Ville along with his merry band of murderers and his 2 wives. Should have been 3, but no, he left her behind when he climbed out the window. Well, one day, David decides, oh, goodness sakes, you'll pardon me. Allergies are upon me. Thunderstorm or no. Anyway, so one day, David decides he misses the bloodsheddy kind of life. He hadn't got to get his massacre on for quite some time. His now wife Abigail done turned him away from doing the last massacre he planned to do. And he's been unable to bring himself to do massacres against the armies and person of Saul because of them being touched by the Lord. So he goes out against some towns of Philistia, and he does a massacre. Kills every man and woman, leaves not a soul standing, whether they pisseth against the wall or not, for fear of somebody getting word back to Mr. Achish that he's doing massacres here in Philistia. And then he takes all of the oxen and assen and sheepen and camelsen and takes them down to Mr. Achish and says, look what I got for you. And Mr. Achish says, where the hell did you turn up all that? And David says, well, I went across the border into Judea and did a little bit of a massacre there and stole all this shit and brought it back to you as tribute. And Achish says, fan-fucking-tastic. Not only do I have extra oxen and sheepsen and assen and camelsen, but David done pissed off his old traditional people and family, and now he ain't never gonna leave because he won't be able to go back home. I love it. And that's the end of the chapter. I've said it before. I shall say it again. Weird fucking book. Molly says, what? David needed to get his sword wet? Yes. Yes, he did. It had been too long, and he required wetness upon his sword. Suddenly imagining somebody coming in just at that moment going, I thought I was here for the Bible. All right, let's see. How are we looking? It's about halfway through March, and it's about halfway through the 11 o'clock hour. I'm on the free version of StreamYard, so I only get 20 hours a month, but I hadn't exactly been overburdening y'all with content the last couple of weeks, so I think I'm still good. I'm going to keep on rolling and see what happens. We might even be able to round out 1 Samuel here today. Who knows? Let me know in the chat if interest flags. And if you're watching this on rerun, you can always just skip ahead to the part that you want to see. I'll try to make sure and change out the banner. Speaking of which, I got to change out the banner. Edit. Yes. Wow, that was a big jarring bobble of the computer. Has that been happening every time? Every time I click on something, has it really been wobbling around all over the place like that? I didn't even notice. Bad content creator. Bad. $28. And it came to pass in those days that the Philistines gathered their armies together for warfare to fight with Israel. And Achish said unto David, Know thou assuredly that thou shalt go out with me to battle, thou and thy men. And David said to Achish, Surely thou know what thy servant can do. And Achish said to David, Therefore will I make thee keeper of mine head forever. Now Samuel was dead, and all Israel had lamented him, and buried him in Ramah, even in his own city. And Saul had put away those that had familiar spirits, and the wizards, out of the land. And the Philistines gathered themselves together, and came and pitched in Shunem. And Saul gathered all Israel together, and they pitched in Gilboa. And when Saul saw the host of the Philistines, he was afraid, and his heart greatly trembled. And when Saul inquired of the Lord answered him not, neither by dreams, nor by Urim, nor by prophets. Then said Saul unto his servants, Seek me a woman that hath a familiar spirit, that I may go to her and inquire of her. And his servants said to him, Behold, there is a woman that hath a familiar spirit at Endor. And Saul disguised himself, and put on other raiment, and he went, and 2 men with him. And they came to the woman by night. And he said, I pray thee, divine unto me by the familiar spirit, and bring me him up, whom I shall name unto thee. And the woman said unto him, Behold, thou knowest what Saul hath done, how he hath cut off those that hath familiar spirits, and the wizards out of the land. Wherefore then layest thou a snare for my life, to cause me to die? And Saul sware to her by the Lord, saying, As the Lord liveth, there shall no punishment happen to thee for this thing. Then said the woman, Whom shall I bring up unto thee? And he said, Bring me up Samuel. And when the woman saw Samuel, she cried with a loud voice. And the woman spake to Saul, saying, Why hast thou deceived me? For thou art Saul. And the king said unto her, Be not afraid, for what sawest thou? And the woman said unto Saul, I saw gods ascending out of the earth. And he said unto her, What form is he of? And she said, An old man cometh up, and he is covered with a mantle. And Saul perceived that it was Samuel, and he stooped with his face to the ground, and bowed himself. And Samuel said to Saul, Why hast thou disquieted me, to bring me up? And Saul answered, I am sore distressed, for the Philistines make war against me, and God is departed from me, and answereth me no more. neither by prophets nor by dreams. Therefore I have called thee, that thou mayest make known unto me what I shall do. And said Samuel, Wherefore then dost thou ask of me, seeing the Lord is departed from thee, and is become thine enemy? And the Lord hath done to him as he spake by me, for the Lord hath rent the kingdom out of thine hand, and given it to thy neighbor, even to David. Because thou obeyedst not the voice of the Lord, nor executed his fierce wrath upon Amalek, therefore hath the Lord done this thing unto thee this day. Moreover, the Lord will also deliver Israel with thee into the hand of the Philistines, and tomorrow shalt thou and thy sons be with me. The Lord also shall deliver the host of Israel into the hand of the Philistines. Then Saul fell straightway all along on the earth, and was sore afraid because of the words of Samuel, and there was no strength in him, for he had eaten no bread all the day nor all the night. And the woman came unto Saul, and saw that he was sore troubled, and said unto him, Behold, thy handmaid hath obeyed thy voice, and I have put my life in thy hand, and have hearkened unto thy words which thou spokest unto me. Now therefore I pray thee, hearken thou also unto the voice of thine handmaid, and let me set a morsel of bread before thee, and eat, that thou mayest have strength when thou goest on thy way. But he refused, and said, I will not eat. But his servants, together with the woman, compelled him, and he hearkened unto their voice. So he arose from the earth, and sat upon the bed. And the woman had a fat calf in the house, and she hasted and killed it, and took flour and kneaded it, and did bake unleavened bread thereof. And she brought it before Saul and before his servants, and they did eat. Then they rose up and went away that night. Go away, notifications. Go away. Oh, thank you, Angie. Angie says, just so you know, I'll watch even if it's glitchy. Am I glitchy? Or was that preemptive? Molly Grew says, The Witch of Endor. Yes. Yes. All right. So this story starts out reminding us that David is living amongst the Philistines, and that he's beholden to Achish, the king of whatever the hell it was. I don't feel like looking it up right now. And then reminds us that this story is set during the time when Saul had driven all of the witches and wizards either out of the country or underground. Still looks good to me. Good, good. Not glitchy. Good. Thank y'all. And it's also the time when Saul can't get any word from the Lord. Neither by prophets, nor by dreams, nor by the fiddling around with divine stuffs and artifacts. And Saul gives up. He turns to his servants and says, Y'all, this is going to sound crazy because I know I just did the whole witch hunt thing where I killed them all or chased them out of the land, but I need you to go find me a witch. They say, okay, you're the boss. One of them says, over at Endor over there, there's a witch. He says, okay, and he puts on a disguise and takes only 2 people with him and goes all creepsy and tricksy into Endor in the middle of the night. And he finds the woman, and he says, I want you to call up a spirit from the dead. And the woman says, are you out of your fucking mind? You heard how Saul is doing the whole kill the witches business? Even if I was a witch, which I'm not saying I am, I wouldn't dare do it. If word got out, Saul would fucking kill me. Out of your goddamn mind. Call up a spirit from the dead? Nobody's sane doing that these days. Jesus Christ, what the hell's the matter with you? And Saul says, I promise, hand to God, I won't tell nobody. The woman says, okay, that's good enough for me. And she says, who do you want me to call up? He says, old prophet Samuel, who died and is buried in Ramah not all that long ago. She says, all right. So she does her whatever witchy stuff that she does and calls on the spirit of Samuel. And the spirit of Samuel shows up, and she's scared positively shitless. Sounds like she wasn't particularly expecting it to work. And Saul sees her freaking out and says, what are you looking at? What do you see? She says, I see an old man in a shroud. Saul says, that sounds like Samuel to me. And Samuel, he's not happy. Samuel says, what? What is it? Why disturb you my eternal slumber? And Saul says, I can't get any word from the Lord. So I figured you're the closest thing to him. You used to speak for him when you were alive. So can you just tell me what I'm supposed to do? I've got this fucking huge army of Philistines and David coming after me. I need help. I need advice. Samuel says, you dumb son of a bitch. Are you out for this? For this you raised me from the dead? I hate your ass so hard. Okay, here's the thing. You remember way back yonder, lo, these many years ago, when we had that slight difference of opinion with regard to genocide? When I told you that God said, go kill all of those motherfuckers and all their sheep, and you killed all of them except for the king and except for the sheep? You remember that? You remember how I told you God wasn't on your side no more because of that stupid that you done did? Saul says, well, yeah, but it came out all right in the end. Samuel says, it was because of that. I told you at the time God wasn't having any truck with you anymore because you don't follow instructions real good. And that's the one thing God wants, is motherfuckers to follow instructions. Jesus Christ. How thick are you, King of Israel, my ass? You know who's the real King of Israel now? Is David. Ha! Teach you to raise me from the grave, stupid ass son of a bitch. And Saul says, well, damn it. And he falls down on his face and refuses to eat anything. And Samuel, poof, he goes away. And the witch comes to Saul and says, you got to eat something. You hadn't eaten anything since yesterday. And Saul says, I don't feel like it. I wanted to be king. Fuck up one little genocide and God won't let you be king no more. And gives it to some ruddy countenanced shepherd boy from the middle of nowhere from Bakerville. Bakerville! You ever fucking been to Bakerville? Bunch of ovens and shit. The whole place smells like yeast. Damn it. I'm not gonna eat. That's the problem. You want me to eat some bread. I'm never eating fucking bread again as long as I'm sucking down air. The person who's replacing me and putting me out of a kingly job is from Bakerville. Eat bread, my ass. I'm not eating anything. And his servants come over and say, dude, good air in, bad air out. You gotta eat something. We're at war with the Philistines. It's gonna look bad if you starve yourself to death and die of hunger. Fucking eat something. Your Majesty. And he says, oh, all right, since you men say the same thing, I'll eat something. I wasn't going to take the word of just one woman, witch though she may be, dead raising powers though she may have. I wasn't fixing to do what she said, but since you men said it was a good idea to eat something, I'll eat something. Hey, woman, get in the kitchen and make me a sandwich. So she gets in the kitchen and makes him a sandwich and brings it to him, and he eats it, and then they move on their way and leave her poor witchy self all discomfited. And that, my friends, is the tale of the Witch of Endor. I said it before. I'll say it again. Y'all say it with me. Weird fucking book. I think we're going to end on that high note. We're at the 1 hour and 30-minute mark. Nobody watches live streams back except if they're on the Modern Day Debate channel, if they're more than an hour long. So I'm pushing my luck as it is. Angie's got me. Weird fucking book. We're going to end on that high note. Thank you all so much for joining me. Everybody who came in along the way, thank you, Molly. Thank you, Angie. Thank you, Maya and Dave and Angelica. And everybody who watches this through after the fact. Thank you so much. Y'all make my day. You really do. I love the community that we've built here. If you enjoyed what you saw here today, make sure you subscribe. Click the notification bell to be alerted whenever we go live again. If you want an absolutely foolproof way of knowing whenever I put something up, you can join my Discord server. Dave has the links over in the chat. There's also a link down in the description below. Rich from What the Craft set me up with a robot that sends an alert out automatically whenever I trigger a video, whether that's an upload or setting up a broadcast here through StreamYard. It's a miraculous thing. I don't understand how it works, but I know that it does. And if you really, really enjoy what I do here, just consider going down to the link in the chat and becoming a Patreon patron of yours truly. We start at the $1 mark. If you want to throw me $1 a month, that would be greatly appreciated as a token of your esteem. And I'll shout you out in the videos. I really and truly will. All right. Well, shilling aside, we are going to wrap this up here. Everybody take care. Be safe. Dave's dropping my links. Thank you so much. I don't know what I'd do without you. Take care. Be safe. Stand against hate. And we're going to end broadcast. Yes. Check box. See you soon. Bye, y'all.